Okay, so let's jump right in. When I say the word entrepreneur, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably some larger-than-life character, right? A visionary, a maverick, a genius. But what if that whole image is more myth than reality? Well, today, we're going to tear down that myth and build a much more accurate and, honestly, a way more interesting picture of what an entrepreneur really is.
And yeah, this quote, it totally nails that image we all have. We see it everywhere in the media. You think of guys like Richard Branson, who's basically presented as this swashbuckling global hero. Or, hey, just turn on your TV and watch shows like Shark Tank or Dragon's Den. It's all about these lone wolves pitching their one big idea. It creates this super dramatic, high-stakes picture of a single person changing the world. But here's where reality starts to paint a very different picture. A huge global survey back in 2011 estimated there were about 388 million entrepreneurs out there, actively starting and running new businesses. 388 million. Let that sink in. That is not some exclusive club for a few mavericks. That's a massive, global phenomenon. So who on earth are all these people?
To get to the bottom of this, here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at that initial spark. Is it really a eureka moment or something else? Then, we'll tackle the age-old question. Are entrepreneurs born special, or are they made through their experiences? After that, we'll explore all the different types of entrepreneurs, because it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all deal. And finally, we'll pull it all together and figure out what the real entrepreneurial mindset actually looks like.
All right, first up, the idea. You know the myth? It's a sudden flash of genius, a eureka moment in the shower that no one's ever had before. But is that really how it happens? Well, in the academic world, this is a huge debate, and it really all comes down to one big question. Are opportunities out there waiting to be found, or are they forged from scratch?
Now, this is where it gets really fascinating, because there are two major schools of thought here. On one side, you've got opportunity discovery. This camp, led by an economist named Israel Kirzner, basically says that opportunities are already out there, kind of like hidden treasures. The entrepreneur is just the super alert person who spots a gap in the market that the rest of us just walk right past. But on the other side, you've got opportunity creation. This view says, nope, entrepreneurs don't find the future, they build it. They start by doing something, and through that action, they actually create a new market by getting everyone else, customers, partners, investors, to buy into their new vision of the world.
And that creation idea, it leads us to one of the most powerful concepts in economics, period. Creative destruction. This came from Joseph Schumpeter, who saw the entrepreneur as this radical innovator. Their new ideas and products don't just add to the economy, they completely shake it up. Think about James Dyson. He didn't just find a little gap in the vacuum market. He created a brand new bagless technology that completely changed the game, pretty much destroying the market for the old clunky models. Now that is creative destruction.
Okay, so if you're just creating an opportunity out of thin air in a world where you have no idea what's coming next, how do you even start? Well, a really popular theory for this is called effectuation. The best way to think about it is like cooking. A normal chef starts with a recipe, then goes and buys all the exact ingredients. But an effectual chef, they open up the fridge and say, okay, what can I make with what I've got right now? They start with their means, who they are, what they know, and who they know. And from there, they create new goals, literally co-creating the future instead of trying to predict it.
So why do we care about all this academic talk? Well, here's the bottom line. It changes everything. It means entrepreneurship isn't this passive waiting game for the perfect idea to strike you like a lightning bolt. No, it's an active process. It's about starting with what you've got right here, right now, and building something valuable from it.
Okay, let's keep this ball rolling. We've tackled the myth of the perfect idea. Now let's get personal and challenge the myth of the person. Are entrepreneurs just a special breed of human, born with a unique set of traits that the rest of us just don't have?
This is a great way to break down that whole born versus made debate. The born view is always looking for specific personality traits like a high need for achievement or a tolerance for risk. It basically suggests that some people are just naturally selected to be entrepreneurs. But the made view says, whoa, not so fast. It argues that our drive, our skills, our very ability to be entrepreneurial is shaped over our entire lives by our family, our school, our jobs. It's much more about what you learn in the situations you're in, not just some innate personality.
And this timeline is just a fantastic way to see that made perspective in action. It's not a single event, it's a lifelong journey. I mean, it can start when you're a kid, just seeing a family member run their own shop. Then in your teens, school and your friends start to shape your ideas. Your first few jobs? They're like an incubator, teaching you skills and showing you problems that need solving. And finally, by the time you're in middle adulthood, all of that career history and the resources you've saved up can come together and give you the push you need to finally take the leap.
And here's what it all boils down to, according to the research. When you try to predict who's actually going to be a successful entrepreneur, looking at their social context, their experience, their education, their network, is way, way more accurate than trying to find some special entrepreneurial personality. In other words, entrepreneurship is a career path you build, not a genetic lottery you win.
So if entrepreneurs are made, not born, and they come from all kinds of different backgrounds, it makes sense that they're not all the same, right? So for our third section, we're going to ditch that one-size-fits-all founder myth and really dive into just how diverse the world of entrepreneurship truly is.
Just take a look at this because it shows how two totally successful entrepreneurs can be polar opposites. A researcher named Norman Smith found these two classic profiles. The craftsman usually comes from a technical, hands-on background. Their main motivation is just being their own boss, and they tend to stick to what they know and do best. The opportunist, on the other hand, often has a broader education, maybe in management. Their goal is to build a big organization, and they're always looking for new, innovative strategies. See, both are entrepreneurs, but they could not be more different.
And the diversity doesn't end there. For a lot of entrepreneurs, one business is just the beginning. A novice, well, they're new to the game, a first-timer. But a serial entrepreneur, that's someone who starts a company, sells it, or closes it down. And then they go and start another one. And a portfolio entrepreneur is even more of a multitasker. They own pieces of 2 or more different businesses all at the same time.
And check this out. When you actually look at the numbers, it's kind of mind-blowing. In big economies like the US, the UK, and Australia, these habitual entrepreneurs, the serial and portfolio types, they make up about half of all business owners. So this isn't some rare thing. Being a repeat player is super common. It just goes to show you that entrepreneurship really is a learned skill and a career, not just a one-time shot.
But while we're talking about all these different faces of entrepreneurship, we have to tackle the elephant in the room, the biggest stereotype of them all. When someone says, picture an entrepreneur, the image that pops into our heads is almost always a man. This think entrepreneur, think male bias isn't just a harmless perception. It creates very, very real barriers for female founders.
So what does that bias actually look like in the real world? It ends up being a whole series of hurdles. For female founders, there's this feeling that they just don't fit the masculine stereotype of a leader. That can lead directly to them being judged more harshly by investors or banks. Sometimes it's the glass ceiling in the corporate world that pushes them to start their own thing just to get ahead. And on top of all that, they often have to deal with the disproportionate pressure of balancing their business with family life. If we're going to deconstruct the myth, we have to see these very real challenges.
Okay, wow. We have torn down a lot of myths, haven't we? The lone genius, the eureka moment, the born leader, the one-size-fits-all founder. They're all out the window. So, what are we left with? Let's pull all these pieces together and build a new, much more real model of the entrepreneurial mindset.
So what have we really learned? It all comes down to this. Entrepreneurship isn't a type of person, it's a process. It's a series of actions that anyone can take. It starts with perceiving an opportunity, either by spotting a gap or by creating something totally new. Then you assemble the resources you need, which you get from your life experience and skills. After that, you create value in your own unique way, whether you're more of a craftsman or an opportunist. And finally, you adapt and you evolve, learning as you go, maybe from a novice to a seasoned serial entrepreneur.
So, let's just leave it with this thought. The myth is a person, a hero on a magazine cover. But the reality is a process, a series of actions that millions of people are taking every single day. So the next time you think about an entrepreneur, don't just picture one person. Instead, look for the process. You might be surprised where you find it, in your own community, at your job, and maybe, just maybe, even in yourself.